So now we've looked at two different experiences that you have. The energy depleting experience, the energy enhancing experience, that you know the difference between the two, and that sometimes we experience one or the other in the same kinds of groups or places. So the question became one of agreements. What are the agreements that exist in here or that? To understand the agreements a little bit better, we need a couple more pieces. The first piece I want to look at is a description of what happens in these experiences and how we know that we're in these experiences. As we started to ask a lot of groups about what the experience is in the energy depleting space or group and the energy enhancing, we started to hear some common themes. So I want you to also reflect on what is it that, how do you know when you're in one of these experiences, and how do you relate to that? To see if this matches up what you know about for yourself. What we found is there are a couple different dimensions or things that are happening. What we found is that people talk about relating to these experiences. So we start to hear stories of, well, in this experience, and I want you to be specific about a place or a group that you have this experience in. What we often hear are stories around, well, when I'm in that group, there's not much of me that shows up. I don't feel really seen or appreciated by other people. I'm not really sure even why I'm in the group or what I'm doing because there's nothing that I bring to it. We always focus on just getting the outcomes whenever I try to do anything else or want to do anything else. We're just fixed on, are we getting the results that we need? And we have to do things by the book. That's just the way things are. So it's not very exciting. When we heard the stories over on this experience, we hear a similar kind of pattern of, well, what I love about being in this group is I'm constantly growing and I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm stepping into things I didn't even know about myself in these experiences. And it's because others will do it with me and see me, and I get to support others in them discovering their own potential. And we each bring something really cool and different to the group. And there's this harmonic that starts to appear. It's just a much more vibrant group. And we're always in the possibilities and then seeing how we're going to manifest them, and it's all very creative, and this creativity is everywhere. And we get some amazing results. If you listen to both of these stories and reflect on that with yours, we start to hear 5 different relationships or ways of relating to these experiences that show up in both. We'll call these the relationship to the self, other, group, nature, and spirit. As I started hearing the stories from many, many different places about these experiences, and folks in small groups reflecting back what they talked about, individuals sharing their stories with me, listening into this, we heard these 5 relationships or ways of relating to this experience over and over again. My relationship to myself in this, there's a lot of me that shows up, or not very much. I feel really seen and appreciated by others, and I do that and support them in what they're trying to achieve, or not, and I'm not appreciated. There's really not much that I bring to the group. I'm not even really clear why I'm in this group. The group really appreciates all of the different things that we each bring. That we're really only focused on the outcomes, and there's just, did we get the results or not? To we're really living in the possibilities that we're going to manifest, and the outcomes that we achieve. And then this whole sort of spirit of the group and the creativity in the group, and that there's sort of only a way things are done and there's a book that tells us the right way to do things, we start to see creativity everywhere all the time. So these 5 ways of relating to it showed up as we listened to people talk. So I just want to be clear here. What we're doing is describing what's being told to us. This isn't a normative approach, meaning that this is the way it should be. These are 5 cool ways of relating to things that people should have, rather in listening to people in many different cultures, including Mexican, America, the US, and Germany as sort of three big places where we've done a lot of this work. In these very different cultures, we hear people sharing that this experience of energy depleting or energy enhancing has these 5 ways that I relate to it. As we went into the literature to see how people describe experiences dating way back, we found that this way of talking about these 5 primary ways of relating to our experience of the world are something that people have been talking about in all the traditions for thousands of years. So these are 5 pretty big, what we'll call the primary relationships or ways of relating to our experience. Now, as we listen to those 2 stories of the energy depleting world and the energy enhancing world, we started to hear something that was in common. We started to hear people say, well, I'm going to start here at the origin, or at the place where they all intersect, as very low vibrancy, this experience, the left-hand experience of the low vibrancy, more energy depleting, and move out towards the energy enhancing experience. What we started to find was people said, when they had the experience of low relationship to self, said there's not much of me that's available, I don't really see any of me in this experience. It's also an experience that they shared with us that they said, I don't really feel seen or appreciated by others. I'm not really clear why I'm in this group. There's the right way to do things and it's in the book, and there is very little creativity. There's very little creativity available, and that's what's in the book, and we're really focused on the outcomes. And what we found is there's a consistency in these experiences. That when somebody said, I'm experiencing this low level in this experience of energy depleting, not much of me shows up. I'm not seeing much of the other or them of me. There's a weak relationship to the group, that we're only focused on outcomes, and the spirit or the creativity, the source of creativity is given to us, that there's a consistency in this story. When we looked at this other end of the experience, we found a very different story. We found that people would say, a lot of me shows up. I feel deeply supported by the other. My voice and the voice of all others and our unique contribution to the group is seen. We're living into all possibilities that we want to develop over time to manifest in specific outcomes. And creativity is everywhere. And so we hear a consistency again in this story. And what we started to find as we're listening, said, well, there's also this intermediate space between these 2 different extremes on this continuum. And we started to hear this middle of people recognize my capacities and I'm learning. Others support me in doing this and I support them. Some of the voices are invited into the group, others aren't. We're really good at processes and learning in this group and achieving great outcomes. We look for creativity in different individuals in our group, and there's a consistency there. So as we start building this map and showing that the lines are showing there's a consistency at this level of experience, that when I experience more of the self, other, then I also experience other, group, nature, and spirit, and less I experience less. So here we're starting to see 2 things. One, there's a consistency in the level of the vibrancy that I experience. And the word vibrancy actually comes out as you start listening to the move towards this outer circle, more towards this experience. So this outer circle is again reflecting this more of this energy enhancing experience, and this inner circle is more of this energy depleting experience. As we move on this, we start to hear the distinction. A lot of the times the words are around the vibe, the vibrancy of the group. There's something in what we value in this experience, and we often describe that in terms that relate to the vibrancy. And it turns out that that works in different languages too, like in Spanish, the vibra, que tiene el grupo. And when we start listening to how I relate to others in the group, people start using the terms of harmonic. The way we're interacting is a much more harmonic way. There's more harmony in the group versus dissonance. The words harmonic vibrancy that we use to describe this three-circle, 1, 2, 3 circle graphic, is something that came out of listening to how people in multiple cultures explain their experience between this energy depleting and energy enhancing. Another piece that comes out of this inner circle experience versus this outer circle experience, these two experiences, is a distinction of what's really present in this group, in this space, the energy depleting, in this inner circle is there's not enough. And a word that shows up a lot in different cultures, again, is one of scarcity. There's a lack, there's a scarcity, there's not much of me, nobody else sees me or appreciates me, what I bring. It's not clear why I'm part of this group. We're not looking to learn or any possibilities, it's just about the outcomes, and there is no creativity looked for. Somebody said, I have a new idea, and they said, well, who asked you? That's not what's in the book, that's not the procedure. And so there's a sense of scarcity in here. But when we talked about this other experience of all of me shows up, I feel really appreciated and seen by others, we welcome all of the different voices that can make contributions. We're always looking into how we can see possibilities that we can choose to develop and manifest in specific outcomes, and we're looking for creativity everywhere. The description of that, the words that start coming out, there's an abundance, there's plenty, there's sufficiency. There's enough for everybody, and we're playing in a world of abundance. Another key thing that we want to see is, again, that we have in this experience, we have a high level of all 5 of these. So another thing that's interesting about this is somebody would say, well, I don't ever experience a really high level of self. All of me is present and I'm really all there. And a high level of others seeing me and appreciating me and me supporting them in their development. But a really weak relationship to the group, and only the focus on the outcomes, and the book tells me what to do. So we don't see experiences where people share the outer experience on some of these relationships and the inner experience, the inner circle experience in others, or the inner here and outer here. So there's a consistency, which is why we have these 3 circles, and the level of experience that people are describing between this energy depleting and energy enhancing. We'll see later that turns out to be really significant, because that's not what's predicted by most of the systems and the sets of agreements that we have, which is why we would spend more of our time in this energy depleting. Said another way, we believe that we can get to this energy enhancing, it'll turn out, with sets of agreements that suppose or assume that only one of these relationships is important and the others aren't. Therefore, we're only looking for the outer circle experience in some of them and not in the others. As I was sharing this the other day, a few months ago, with one colleague, an executive at Reebok, he said, isn't it kind of funny that anybody would ever assume that this wasn't true? He said, this seems pretty obvious at these circles. And as I just said, he said, that's true. It does seem pretty obvious that if you have a high level of experience of one of these, you would expect to have a high level of experience of all of these. Yet, that's not what these agreements that we have in place assume or do. And that's why we spent a lot of our life over on here. And possibly what we're discovering in those groups that are the higher vibrancy is somehow they figured out how to be in a set of agreements with each other that allow us or support us in being all 5 of these at the same time. Now, one last thing I want to bring to you is, in thinking about these 5 relationships at these 3 levels, is something that you'll see described very clearly in the book and in the graphics that we're using, is the gesture that we experience at each level, so that you have a felt experience. So as we said when we started the previous video, talking about these 2 different experiences, is we're going to come back always to in your own self, in your own experience, how you're relating to this experience, whether you're experiencing this lower vibrancy or this higher vibrancy, this more scarcity-based, more abundance-based, this energy depleting versus energy enhancing, this inner circle versus outer circle experience. These are all different ways of describing these 2, right? and that you know that in your body. So what is happening here on this low relationship to the self? Coming back to your body experience, which you know in your own way of relating to it. And that's this experience of being collapsed. So as I'm really collapsed in on myself, what is it that I experience? And what we hear, and maybe you had the same thought, is one of vulnerability. When I'm like this and collapsed in, I can't see anything, literally, because my head is down. I'm protecting my heart space and my will, my intention. I'm protecting all of this. And yet, when I'm most protected by this skeleton that protects all of these entries into how I experience life, that's when I'm most vulnerable. And that's the picture that you see down in here. The other is when I can now stand with my capacities and who am I. So I can stand here firmly on the earth. Here I am, this is who I am, the capacities that I bring right here, right now. And you know when you're having the difference between this experience of here I am on the earth right now versus when I'm in a collapsed state. Then there's this other experience that you have of sort of moving through life. And I'm learning, I'm experiencing, I'm on the journey. It's about the journey and not just the destination. It's about the means and the ends. So I'm moving through life, having this learning growth experience. Then there's this experience, which is this one of all of me is here. Yes. If you ever watched a soccer match, a football match, a volleyball match, some great sport, any of these rock concerts, if you watch them from the audience, what you see, you never see people going, yes, yes, right? It's always this gesture of yes. So the question is, if this is our full expression, yes, all of me is here. All of my potential, everything that I can develop, and the outcomes and capacities that I bring. From all of my creativity to here I am doing it. Now what's interesting is you know this experience, it's different than this experience, it's different than this experience, and it's different than this experience. And this one is physically the most vulnerable. You can attack me from any place. My head, my heart, my back, my groin, my will, all of this stuff you can attack. Yet what is your feeling when you're actually in this position of yes? And what we hear in many cultures again is one of strength, of all of my potential. So what we're going to suggest is maybe this is the full potential human being, this is that outer circle, this is this experience, and in that experience is this gesture. And if this gesture is the one that you feel more comfortable in, then why is it that we know that this is the one that we feel more strength in, and this is the one that we experience more abundance in? Maybe this is the natural state of who we are and what we want, and this is not, and this is not. So this is the natural state of who you are, and what are our agreements in place that support you not being over here in that inner circle, and this gesture, or maybe this one of these are just the capacities I bring. Rather, I'm a learning and fully available potential human being. So we're going to look at what are the agreements that support me having this experience, which is this experience. Again, not because Jim says so, because when we've asked these questions, when we've looked at a lot of groups, we'll look later at the Harmonic Vibrancy Survey, which you can take for free online. And we've done it with thousands of people across 89 countries so far. People describe this is how I feel in the self when I'm having this energy enhancing experience versus this energy depleting experience where at best, here I am with my capacities, or in a more collapsed state. Bringing it back again to the point is that you know in your experience the difference between this, being able to stand there, here I am, with what I can do right now, versus I can bring this and I can be in my learning and growth and development, or I can be in my capacities and learning and all of me. So that's, you know in your experience which one you're in. And there's a similar in the other. I don't feel seen at all. We're back to back. What can I see of you if my back is to you? versus I can see you and here I am supporting the capacities that you bring, versus I'm supporting you in your learning and your development as we go through life, versus I'm here and I have your back. And since you have my back, I know that I can step into doing things if you'll go with me. And if you've had that experience, you know the difference between amongst these different experiences and which one you're in. Likewise, here, I'm just doing the work of the group. I'm completely replaceable. There's nothing unique about what I bring. Versus there's a team of us. And some of our voices are invited and others aren't. Because some of us have unique contributions and others don't. So there's an us and a them. Versus here, really this gesture, again, that same gesture of everybody's welcome. Not everybody has to contribute, but everybody's voice is welcomed in because we know how to bring in the harmonic from all of those voices and their unique contributions. And then as you see in the graphic, we have here a house that's saying that we're focused on the outcomes, the results. Where we're on the second circle, we're looking at in nature, the description is one of we're into development, we're into process, we're into changing things over time. So we've introduced time now and achieving these outcomes. And then out here, we're looking into possibilities. Yeah, that it's the creative gesture of seeing a new possibility that we want to develop to achieve some outcome over time. And then out here, on this axis, what we see, a relationship, is we see the book, there's a right answer, the creativity was given to us once, and this is how we do things. To some people are able to add to the voice that was given to us in the past, interpreters of new creative voices, versus out here, the experience that we hear is one of everybody brings their own creativity, their own potential. And we're always inviting in all of that because it's everywhere and everyone all of the time. So to come back to sort of synthesize all of this and summarize it, as we listen to people describe, and your voice included, the difference between this energy depleting experience and this energy enhancing experience, how you know when you're in one or the other, the different ways you relate to these two experiences. We heard the 5 relationships. We heard that in here there was lack, scarcity, depletion, and it was consistent across the lower level in all 5 relationships. Over on this side, the energy enhancing, we heard a consistency in all 5 relationships at this higher level. And we heard somewhere in between this middle level. And now we've said, I know in my own experience, whether I'm in this experience, this moving, learning through life experience, or this all of my potential, yes, experience, I know which one I'm experiencing in myself, other, group, nature, and spirit. I know which one I'm experiencing. I know, therefore, which circle I'm in. And what we want to now see is, how does this help us understand the agreements that are supporting the circle or level of experience that we're having? And that will be something we further explore in Chapter 2, or Lesson 2.